What does time mean when your survival depends on it and your power depends on mastering it? That question sits at the heart of this conversation with François-Xavier Hotier, who is the president of Ulysse Nardin in Americas and is trained in political science and military academy. François-Xavier brings a rare dual lens to horology, one that understands watches not just as luxury objects, but as instruments shaped by geopolitics, navigation, and global power. Now, Ulysse Nardin's story begins at sea. Long before the wristwatch became a symbol of status, precision at sea was a matter of national security. Naval chronometers decided trade routes, military advantages, and imperial reach. And Ulysse Nardin stood at the center of that world. In this episode, we explore how maritime precision became a political tool and how that legacy still informs the brand's identity today. But this is also a conversation about the modern world. FX takes us inside the realities of leading a historic Swiss manufacturer across the Americas, navigating globalization, cultural differences, sustainability, and shifting definitions of luxury. We talk about diplomacy and prestige, about watches as symbols of authority, and about how heritage brands communicate meaning in a fragmented, digital, and politically charged environment. We also explore responsibility. From marine conservation to veteran support, we discuss how historical DNA can be extended into the present and what it means for a brand to act not just commercially, but also culturally. This episode sits at the crossroads of history and strategy, of navigation and narrative. It sits in the crossroads of timekeeping as both a scientific achievement and a political language. So stay with us, because when time governs oceans, borders, and markets, watches become far more than objects. They become statements of power. Welcome to another episode of Watches and Politics. And this week, I'm very glad to have someone special on my podcast. With me, I have the President of Americas for Ulysse Nardin, Mr. François-Xavier Hotier. But if in the watch world, you go and ask someone or talk to someone about François-Xavier, nobody will know who you're talking about, because everyone knows him as FX. He's the legend among the collector communities, and for a good reason, because he is very much involved with the community all over America. So everyone knows him, and I'm very happy to have him here. FX, welcome to Watches and Politics. I'm very glad to have you here.
Thank you, Erdogan. I'm very excited to have this conversation.
I always want to start with a very open-ended question, and that is, what comes to your mind when you hear watches and politics?
Watches and politics, two words. Watches indicates time. Politics are governance of a country, governance of a region, of a territory. So, what's politics about? Politics is about power, correct? So the question you ask is probably, FX, do you believe that watches are an instrument of power? And that's a cool question. So watching politics, I love the idea that for a leader, a watch is a demonstration of power. And I'll go very cliche probably. I'm sure some other guest of yours discussed that before, but this president's watch, I think that's the Rolex day date. There's many presidents of the United States who used to wear this watch. I mean, Donald Trump, You have Kennedy, I think Johnson, I may forget a few, wearing the president's watch. And so I think it says something about Rolex and the fact that their association to people of power. And then if we talk politics, you have the different political system. So it's democracy, the people, autocracy, a monarch or one man, usually, one person, and oligarchy, like a group of people, you know, it was like that for ages, right? So it's kind of interesting when we see how people react to men of power. I say men to go cliche, but men of power wearing watches. I remember Barack Obama, kind of well known among us, you know, the watch people, for wearing like, I forgot the name, but like not an expensive watch, maybe a $500 or $1,500 watch, which is not expensive for the luxury category, right? Also, I think we saw him with a Tag Heuer, which is a brand I love. And it's kind of interesting because he can clearly afford a more expensive watch. I think he wanted to project an image. We, the people, my belief. And then you have sometimes oligarch. I have in mind Russia. Don't ask me why. I have in mind some presidents in some countries like Africa wearing crazy expensive watches and jewelry and diamonds, while their people are starving. You know, so I think there's this display of power, and if you look at different type of politics, there's a lot to say about us. You know, the what we want to project, or maybe how egoistic people can be, and the bad image somehow you give in a country where people really suffer to have access to basic food or water, and you display your wealth and power with just a little 42 millimeter object.
Well, what a great start. I love how you brought up all these important things. And just for the listeners, FX has a degree in political science. I am not the only one that likes politics, and I'm very happy to bring this together. Well, thank you very much. And on the one hand, also Ulysse Nardin has a political background, and that is because historically it is tied to naval chronometers, right? Which is also something that you personally feel passionate about. So, how do you see that heritage of UN shaping the brand's identity today?
I think let's talk about history a little bit. You have plenty of books in your bag, so I think that's where you want to go. I mean, the fast track answer is to say, yes, Ulysse Nardin, we are known for marine chronometers. At the same time, we are this interesting independent manufacturer. We've been here for 179 years today, 180 years in a month. So we are one of the oldest manufacturer which continuously produced timepieces, which is very interesting. At the same time, we are known for the Frick, which also celebrates its 25-year anniversary. Next year, the Frick is this super innovative watch. We call it the first super watch. So there's this duality in Ulysse Nardin, heritage and innovation. So to answer your question, let's come back in time and how we got into marine chronometers and how we participated, yes, to the policy, to the governance of some countries. So if you're back in 1846, you are in the Swiss Jura Mountains. Mr. Ulysse Nardin opened his workshop with his name. So if you go to our museum in Switzerland, our museum is in Le Locle, where the manufacturer has been at the time. You see a dial, like the dial of my watch, with Ulysse Nardin, Le Locle, Switzerland. So it's pretty stunning to see that 179 years after, the dial of Ulysse Nardin is kind of the same for some collections. So if you talk about the story of marine chronometers, let's get back at the time of Ulysse Nardin. You are in the 1840s. At the same time, navigation is strategic for the countries. I will name a few schools, but the French Naval Academy has been created in 1830. The Academy in Annapolis has been created in 1845. The Kuznetsov Naval Academy in Russia is from 1827, but it was really organized as a Naval Academy, I believe, in 1862. The Royal Navy, the Royal Academy, I think I took note here, Royal Naval College, 1863. So when Mr. Ulysse Nardin was doing this incredibly precise pocket watches in his shop in Switzerland, at the same time, you see countries getting organized, training young midshipmen, officers into navigation. Okay, that's the context of the time. Mr. Nardin was one of the first, maybe the only one, I didn't research so hard, but having an astronomical watch inside his workshop to check himself the reliability of his pocket watches. He really wanted to be super, super reliable. So let's fast forward. You are in the 1870s. His son, Paul David Nardin, is taking over the business. What's happening at this time? You are in the very height of the second industrial revolution. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of Atlantic treaties between UK, France, United States. Trade is at its best. Steel, wood, fishing. You have boats built everywhere, right? And all these boats are sailing all over the place. You have a lot of pack boat. You have cruise. Think about the Titanic, talking about navigation. Also, crossing the Atlantic. A lot of boats need equipment. The marine merchant companies are getting very professional, training also their navigation officers. There is a need in super precise pocket watches. This is where Ulysse Nardin is starting in 1876. His son, Ulysse Nardin has a company, but Paul David Nardin, the son, is really moving the company, specializing the company to producing pocket watches for navigation and marine chronometers. So I've got a museum piece here, which is in my personal collection. So this is exactly what you have in a ship, Ulysse Nardin. This is what you have in a ship in the late 19th century.
Amazing.
This object, in some cases, so this marine chronometer was more expensive than the boat itself. Like today in some airplanes, all the navigation equipment, all the electronic systems sometimes are more expensive than the plane itself. You have the same phenomenon with these instruments. They were a matter of efficiency, a matter of safety. It was physically the way to carry time on board the ship. You carry time. You understand? It's incredible. The only way to know what time it is on the ship was really to carry it physically. And it was, of course, managed by the navigation officers to help with the position, the longitude, the position of the ship. So it's a very strategic object. Ulysse Nardin got specialized in marine chronometers. They were done before. But what we've done extremely well was the capacity to produce in-house the most reliable, the most precise marine chronometers and produce enough to be able to contract, supply merchant companies, and also over, I think, 51 admiralties. By the beginning of the century, the 20th century, we are supplying over 50 admiralties all across the world. This is how we became specialized in marine chronometers, but also how we participated, and I feel pretty excited about it. This is how we participated to trade to globalization in a way, and to navigation at large.
This is the politics itself, from shaping how militaries, how marines found themselves in the sea to globalization. But I want to stay here a little bit longer, and I want to ask you, how did precision at sea become a political and strategic tool? And what role did Ulysse Nardin play in that story? And I'm sorry to you, to my listeners, that most probably I'm not pronouncing the name Ulysse Nardin correctly, but that is the best I can do.
You do great, Erdogan. So it's a complex question. So it's a very large answer, because if you ask me how we participate to think about the Roman Empire, Alexander the Great, traveling, expanding your territories, defines power. And it's interesting when you remember the Iliad and the Odyssey. At this time, navigation was pretty basic, in the sense that the boats were usually sailing along the coast to know where they are. They needed an island. They needed something big and visible for navigation. The understanding on mapping the skies, the understanding of the movements of the planets, driven for religious purposes, or to understand usually the seasons, when you have rain, fall, etc. So I don't want to come back to 3000 BC, but you get the idea that understanding navigation and expanding the territories were a matter of power. So now let's get back to almost yesterday in history. The British Empire. British Empire had this big incident, lost hundreds of men at sea because the navigation instruments were not really reliable. And you have this John Harrison, clockmaker, who appeared with the H1 to the H4. So you are between 1830 something and 1870, I believe. 1730 and yes, exactly, 1730, H1, and you are in 1770, I believe. So John Harrison brought very more precise marine chronometers, simplified navigation, and then suddenly you're able to map your journey. And you have a sextant to calculate with the angle with the sun your latitude, north-south position, as a longitude act. The longitude, you need a marine chronometer to know your time from the point of departure, the Greenwich line. So this is where the longitude act, John Harrison, really changed navigation. And is it a coincidence if the British Empire managed to have this gigantic and beautiful fleet, literally controlling a fourth of the world? So I think it's a perfect definition of how a country understood that they have to allocate money, resources, and sponsor, in fact, watchmakers to help them dominate the world, because intention was trade or military, but to dominate the world. It's a great example, I believe. If you look after that, you have, of course, watchmakers at Breguet, Ferdinand Berthoud, also involved in marine chronometers to help for navigation. Again, we discussed that. Ulysse Nardin got specialized. I think where we participated to this expansion and probably helped countries in trade or in with their naval fleet was the precision we have. Ulysse Nardin, as a company again, worked with Guillaume, a physicist, I think he's a Nobel Prize, who brought a bimetal alloy to the clock in order to make our clocks very reliable despite the change of temperature and humidity. And this is how we became so reliable that merchant companies chose Ulysse Nardin. Reliability was the key. We've been supplying admiralties till the Second World War. And after the Second World War, which makes me very proud, by the way, as a French person, because on the landing beaches of Normandy, the Canadian Coast Guard or the US Navy was still equipped with our pocket watches. During the First World War, the US submarines, the US torpedo boats were all equipped with UN pocket watches. And we supplied to the Second World War, but after, of course, the radar, electricity replaced all of it. A fun fact for you, Erdogan, because you're Washington, D.C., correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, best weekend trip. You drive 45 minutes, you go to Annapolis, where they have a very nice museum at the Naval Academy. And here you can discuss with the museum staff. I also have a friend, I can connect you, Andrew Story, Royal Navy officer who is teaching navigation at the Academy. I will connect you and maybe he can offer you a visit of the Academy. He did that for me. And he will tell you that he's taking the midshipmen on the Chesapeake Bay sailing with marine chronometers as pocket watches. So today, these kids, being engineers, graduated, having the best technology in the world on their ships, they are still learning how to use a watch, basically, to navigate. They still have to use that. And I was asking why. The easy answer is because if you understand the basic of navigation, then understanding GPS makes a lot more sense. You have to know the basics to learn your trade if you want. The other answer, which I found very interesting, and I got it from the Academy, is with cyberware. You could disable all the electronics in a ship. Or in the future, you will be able to kill all electronics. It could be a hacking, it could be some different interferences. So you may have a situation in the future when you have like naval officers, like very old school, using a pocket watch and navigate in a ship because all the electronics are disabled. That's why they have to learn to use old school a watch for navigation.
Oh, wow, this is amazing. Thank you very much for sharing this with us, FX. This shows how much we don't know how watches and politics is also related. Because when we think about watches and politics, a lot of people think about political scandals or diplomatic gifts or what presidents would wear, for example. But then there are practical uses of watches in politics even today. And when we're talking about marine chronometers, I think it's worth also to mention that these were the precision in it is at another level. Is because I think 1 second miss is like 15 kilometers from when the ship is on the sea. So this is why marine chronometers are actually very precise, and they set a standard for how precision should be. Or am I wrong here?
You're right. I think it's a 1 second deviation is creating a 400 meters. I know in meters, sorry. And it sends on a course, on a journey of 100 miles, it sends your ship like another location. To your point, I have in the office official documents. This one's from 1946. When you see how it goes, so you make a marine chronometer, then you have a bulletin march, which is some kind of a certificate, which is given to an astronomical observatory, which is a neutral organism. This one is Neuchâtel, which is pretty famous. And you see how the experts will measure every day, depending on temperature, location, etc. They will measure the precision of the chronometer, and they will indicate here all the deviation to say it passed the test, it can be certified. All our chronometers were going through intense testing at the time to validate what you said, precision. No precision means literally a life and death situation for the team.
And thank you very much for all these stories. Now I'm curious because you mentioned Britain and, of course, John Harrison. And most of the time, we understand that also countries sponsored, or they were the patrons of the watchmakers, of the scientists. So I was curious to ask, and of course, this is from your perspective, how do watches serve as symbols of national prestige, but also of diplomacy?
Oh, it's a complicated question. I think John Harrison is an amazing example of how Britain got really instrumentalized a watch to pursue a strategy of power. But if you look today, I mean, United States used to make watches, Japan, Russia, some of these countries where, if you talk about micrometers, we're literally disassembling one that could be ours and making exactly the same and trying to get the same reliability. It was of interest of defense, you know. But I think it kind of disappeared today. Of course, you find watches made in UK, in France, in Japan. Of course, you have brands today, but I think only Switzerland today is seeing manufacturing watches as a strategic asset, as at least for economy, but also for prestige. You know, the association of Swiss quality, a Swiss watch, luxury Swiss watches, is giving to the country, to Switzerland, an incredible brand image, brand equity that they can use after for tourism to attract people to their amazing hotels on the lakes and Zermatt and St. Moritz. I think strategically today only Switzerland really sees this industry, our industry specifically, as a national of national interest.
And how do you think that companies or brands like Ulysse Nardin, or companies that brands that have this much heritage, how should they balance tradition with innovation in their products, but also in how they tell their story globally?
A company like ours has this duality, and this duality is part of who we are. I mean, on one hand, I can show you artifacts coming from museums with the Ulysse Nardin, Le Locle stamp. At the same time, we are doing extremely innovative watches. There's between this 19th century marine chronometer and the Frick. I have a Frick here, the famous Frick 1. No hands, no dial, no crown, first watch to introduce silicone in the industry in 2001. You have really like two different attitudes, two different design. But the idea is, at the core, the idea is the same. It's how can you innovate? To which extent can you be a R&D facility? Because watches are relevant if they are extremely innovative. So that's basically what's at the core of the company, the innovation. And now, how we have tradition or heritage and innovation mixed at Ulysse Nardin or working together. I have an example on my wrist, in fact. This watch is called a Marine Torpilleur Semper Fortis. Semper Fortis being the non-official motto of the US Navy. If you look at the face of this watch, or even the clock I have in the back, with the power reserve at 12 o'clock, the little second at 6 o'clock, the Roman numerals, fluted bezel, the silver color. If you look at this watch, which has been launched a few years ago, is a replica in 44 millimeter of a 64 millimeter pocket watch we have produced for the US Navy. But I mean, we are talking about 1905 and 2025. There's 120 years difference between the mother of this watch and the watch itself. And still, you recognize Ulysse Nardin. What's the difference? Of course, the technology of this watch, from miniaturization to the manufacture caliber, the rotor, the silicone technology, silicon escapement, silicon airspring, all of this technology is super advanced and super modern. And I think that's pretty incredible. And that's why I love luxury so much, or Ulysse Nardin so much, is how you can have an heritage which is 179 years old now. And what you do today is basically the continuation of the original idea of quality, precision, in-house innovation. For me, that's fantastic. So that's how I believe we play with these two concepts, being an old manufacturer but super innovative.
I want to dive deeper into the story about Ulysse Nardin and the American Navy, but searching about you, preparing for this podcast, I've also seen that you've spoken a lot about connecting the brand to veterans and marine conservation. So, how do these initiatives extend Ulysse Nardin's historical DNA into the present?
Yes, I mean, the beauty of a brand like ours is the storytelling is true. Storytelling can be research. I just shipped you a gift, by the way, today, which is this little book, A Story Made History, which explains the connections between us as a manufacturer and the US government and the US Navy. It's a true story. It has been made by an historian outside of Ulysse Nardin. And that's the beauty of a welcome. That's the beauty of a brand like ours. We have plenty of history. The watch I was presenting, the Marine Torpilleur, Semper Fortis, we have launched the watch at the Naval Academy in Annapolis during an event. When Ulysse Nardin was sponsoring, we were called Stars and Stripes sponsor, the Medal of Honor convention. And what we did as a company is that we paid for the travel of the recipients, the 3 recipients in 2018 who received the Medal of Honor at the Naval Academy. So Ulysse Nardin, we have this connection and we want to keep it, which is we have worked for the United States. We played a role in the history of the United States. We want to keep the connection. So you see there is an historical connection, which we take very seriously. And to your point, we have a connection with the veterans. So after we sponsored the Medal of Honor convention, it's very, very political, to your point. Secretary of the Navy was here. So it was a great exposure for us as a company. When I met with the organizers in DC, they didn't want a foreign company to sponsor this event. But I told them, listen, maybe we are a foreign company from a neutral country, by the way. But the reason why we want to be here is because we worked with the US Navy. And I had to give them and to prove them with different information that we supply the US Navy, which is very easy to prove. We have all the documents of supply. So it was very easy. We have a watch in our museum with a US Navy stamp. So when they realized that, then we could sponsor the event. I think that's pretty amazing. Now, what we are doing right now, and I put it in my bag here, we are sponsoring an organization. I want to say a word about them pretty loud. It's called One More Wave. So this organization has been created by Navy SEALs, so in San Diego, in Coronado, in California. And the initial idea of these SEALs is that the guys are surfing a lot. There's a long history of the US Army or Navy, probably Air Force as well, surfing everywhere from the Vietnam War, California, Virginia Beach. The guys are surfing, basically. And some of them, when you come back from combat, you could be very PTSD, depression, and sometimes you have amputees. And these people suddenly become disconnected to the community, to the veterans, or they just physically believe that they can't do some activities like surfing. So these guys, the One More Wave people, they recreated a community. They have a surf shop in San Diego, and they produce surfboards for disabled veterans, Ulysse Nardin is sponsoring this organization. We are organizing fundraising for this organization. We have created 3 collections of watches with the One More Wave stamps, which are super high in demand. The first 2 series are sold out, and we have a new watch we have launched this year in July, which is entering the market. And watches are what we do. But the intention is a corporate social responsibility for my team, my American team, to support the US veterans. We are super active. I'm going every year to meet them and surf with them. My team is super active with them. It became more a personal topic sometimes for the guys here than just corporate. And I think that's pretty incredible. And again, it makes sense because of the connection we have initially with the Navy. Remember, on the logo Ulysse Nardin, there is an anchor in the middle. So it's our way, if you want, to say, okay, we know where we come from. We know we are driven by innovation, by R&D, by breaking the rules. We keep our heritage alive. If today our heritage is, and we understand that, we go very crazy with the freak collection, the blast collection, but we understand our heritage is still connected with the sea. And so that's why we love navigation, we love sailing, we love the veterans and surfing, all of this, Naval Academy. We keep these connections because we believe that it keeps the brand true to its roots.
I'll make sure to include the link of One More Wave in the comments for
cool. Thank you.
The audience to also see it. And however, there is something that we are postponing constantly, and that is
the Navy. Why is the Navy?
Nardin's entrance in the US market coming from the Navy. So why don't we dive into that, please?
Yes, so it's a history class again.
Well, you like history, we like politics, a lot of history here, but also we are speaking about how watches today are also continuing to play roles in all this history or continuing that heritage.
So yes, so there is how do we enter the US market? So before we entered the US market in 1905. So before that, the Nardin family was already exporting marine chronometers to other navies, to other admiralties, including in Latin America. And for Ulysse, for Mr. Ulysse Nardin, and his son Paul David Nardin, it became some kind of obsession to enter into the US market. Remember, it's pretty incredible to remember that, but when Ulysse Nardin opened his workshop, the United States were only like a 60-year-old country.
Yes.
And it was a very, very dynamic country, very dynamic market, innovative, very industrial, expanding to the West. It was kind of an El Dorado for watchmakers living in the mountains of the Swiss Jura. It was some kind of a new world. And we were already exporting very well. So they got very interested by this market. Remember, Ulysse Nardin was so precise. We've been participating to many competitions all around the world. It was a thing in the past. The brands were competing in different exhibitions worldwide in order to basically be known. It was the marketing of the time. Ulysse Nardin today has more than 4,300 awards, usually for precision. In 1893, Ulysse Nardin is the only watch company receiving a gold medal for the most reliable pocket watch. It was a pocket watch decorated with industry and art. And I believe that I have it somewhere here. I may find it. So we are winning this competition. So suddenly we are getting some traction in the United States. Just to make it short, we are the best in pocket watches and precision and perceived as such in the late 19th century in the USA. The US government realized that their marine chronometers and pocket watches were not very reliable. So 1904, the US government, Theodore Roosevelt, is creating some kind of a competition, inviting all watchmakers to participate to the competition in order for the US Navy, to choose the most reliable, the most precise navigation instruments, marine chronometers. Ulysse Nardin, oh my God, it's our opportunity. They jumped in the opportunity. 31 chronometers were proposed by different organizations. Among the Swiss brands, 11 chronometers were proposed. Ulysse Nardin got first place. So Ulysse Nardin was selected by has been selected then by the U.S. government. The Naval Observatory in Washington, D.C., it still exists, and the Naval Observatory in D.C. Was in charge of analyzing, like the same way you've seen with all this data, analyzing all these 31 chronometers. All Ulysse Nardin chronometers presented were all taken by the Navy, and in 28 December 1905, we delivered officially the first supply of pocket watches to the US Navy. These very first pocket watches, they are the ancestor of the watch I have. The watch I have, the Samper Fortis, is designed to be the exact replica of this pocket watch delivered to the Navy. Fun fact, usually on our pocket watches of the time, wherever we were sending them, whichever country, it's written in French on the power reserve. Haut, bas, high, low on the power reserve. The US Navy, for example, asked us to write in English, high and low. Also, on the power reserve, you have this 48-hour indication. The 24 number is in red. It's also the US Navy asked us to put a red. It's kind of an alert. It's a reminder for the crew to rewind the watch when it's only 24 hours power reserve in the pocket watch. So it's a fun fact. So 1905, we started to supply the US Navy, mostly with pocket watches for submarines and for torpedo boats, which conclusion of what I'm saying is that basically the Navy, the torpedo boats, and the submarines were Ulysse Nardin equipped. So imagine a scene of the captain timing a torpedo out of a submarine with Ulysse Nardin, Le Loc, Switzerland, Swiss, on his wrist. Torpedo boats doing maneuvers, coordinating maneuvers with other ships, always using Ulysse Nardin. That's pretty incredible. And just another fun fact. You're in 1905. We just entered as a supplier of the US Navy, 28 December 1905. In May of the same year, and it boosted, it was some kind of great marketing for us. The very same year, in 1905, in May, you have a battle, a naval battle between the Russian fleet and the Japanese fleet. It's called the Battle of Tsushima. And the Battle of Tsushima is a famous battle because the Japanese fleet destroyed or captured all the 11 battleships of the Russian Navy. Basically, they annihilated the Russian Navy, which is an explanation why, during the First World War, the Russian Navy had almost no ships available for the First World War because they were all taken or sunk in Japan. During this battle in May 1905, both admiralties, the Russians and the Japanese, are equipped with Ulysse Nardin marine deck chronometers. The big difference was the use of it. The Japanese did very well in not only using the marine chronometers to navigate the traditional longitude positioning of a ship, they also use their chronometers to organize their attack and the artillery from the ship. They really made a very good use of timing to coordinate attacks. And that's a very smart use, used a lot after in torpedo boats and submarines. When basically timing is not only a matter of positioning, it's a matter of coordinating different type of ships, different type of weaponry. Another fun fact, but this is out of Ulysse Nardin, is that they could also communicate very well because the Japanese used for the first time telegraphy, so basically radio, to communicate. So they were communicating very fast, coordinating attacks very fast in a very precise manner. Result, they got rid of the Russian fleet in 2 days.
That's politics right there. And
Oh, that's some brutal politics, yes.
so, in navigating different markets across the Americas, where do you see cultural or political dynamics most affecting how watches are received?
I'm biased, if you want, because I'm traveling a lot. I mean, with the team, we're traveling every week in North America, but I'm biased because information I collect is from collectors I meet with, and I don't meet with all of them, or the retailers we work with in certain markets. So I'm kind of biased. I think like different pockets, different geographies have different tastes or different interests into watches. It could be also related to like the social, educational background. But I will be a bit cliche to make it simple. My feeling is that I just came back from Dallas. I've been traveling Midwest recently. For example, in these markets, the customers are more into a classic look, classic big names. It's more Rolex type of market for me. And Ulysse Nardin would be really like for the very, very niche collectors, the experts in watchmaking. So it's more like a classic market. When I go to New York, here you see very sophisticated collectors, very engaged with watch clubs, the Horological Society in New York. They go to conferences. And for us, they will be interested in our tourbillon, our striker, or the very rare, super high horology watches we do sometimes. We don't even communicate about them, but they know. Or astronomical watches, the Moonstruck. So it's a very, very, very sophisticated market, very driven by collectors. But we have a big, big business with a boutique in Palo Alto. We have a big business on the West Coast. And I remember I went there recently to launch a watch, in fact, inspired by called Blast Free Wheel Marquetry, silicon green. It's a watch with the dial is made of silicon, and it's inspired by the green color of the circuit board. So when we had our event to launch this watch, I mean, everybody was like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Meta. I mean, Zuckerberg, the collector of UNs, it's not, it's public, you have NVIDIA, Microsoft, Meta, Apple type of guys, the tech bros, as you say in the US. And you see that in these markets, they are very technology driven. They are engineers in background, work tech, and they love what we do with the Blast collection, with our open work watches, the Diver Air. They love the Freak, of course, because of the innovation in it. So you see, very cliche, New York, old money, collector's mindset, very complicated watches, mid-country, more like, or even Florida, Midwest, more into or divers and diver type of watches, more utilitarian understanding of a watch. And if you go west, for us, this is where we sell really the high complications, but we're very, very innovative and very high-tech, very contemporary designs.
Yes, a lot of people take United States as only one country. But actually, if you take how people eat as well, like breakfast, lunches, and dinners, it also differs in different states in the US, and I'm guessing that's the same for when it comes to collecting watches. Now, you said that, for example, in New York, there are some collectors that you produce some watches, you don't even publish them, and then they know about it and they buy it. When I met you in New York last time, there was a watch that I never saw. For example, to my understanding, I think it was sold out before it went public. It was the UN Crosshair, I think.
Oh, it's a Corsair, yes. Oh, yes, you've seen this piece. It's stunning, yes.
That's at another level, and like in the event that you organized, it was stunning to see that piece in a collector's hand, actually, not in
Yeah.
yours.
I mean, to explain, it's a very complicated watch. It's a lot of movement. The tourbillon is not even the complication on this one. There's a
Yes.
lot more action and innovation. It's pretty stunning in terms of craft as well. The dial is a piece of art. It's made with wood. It's incredible. But why it's not very well known? Because we did a series of 3 ultra complicated marine watches. One is called the Grand Deck, one is called the Mega Yacht, and the third iteration of this super complicated collection is called the Corsair like a pirate. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that the collectors who purchase already the first 2 watches will have access first to the third one. So we simply connected to all these gentlemen, and one of the gentlemen was in the room, but we connected to all of the gentlemen and said, listen, we are bringing a 3rd edition and last of this super complicated watch. Are you interested? And all of them said yes. So we just simply delivered the watch. I think it took us 2.5 years, the time to do it, even 3 years, the time to do it and deliver it. And it never went public because it was gone to the gentleman.
Which was an amazing, very innovative. And when you think about watches, like, what can they innovate? Like, you have tourbillon, you have mid repeater, and then you have grand sonnery, all right, minute repeater and stuff like that. But then you see pieces like these, and then you see how much space for innovation there still is. So that is, for example, one of the watches that I was amazed after so many years into watches. So I'm gonna make sure that the audience knows what we're talking about, and I'm gonna include it in the comments as well, for them to see it. But I wanted to ask, do you see luxury today, or like luxury watches maybe, as political artifacts or objects that carry meaning beyond commerce? This is for you present tense, not history.
Yes. I don't think watches are. I mean, we discussed already how they are an instrument of power, to display power, or on the contrary, to display modesty. So we discussed that at the very beginning. Otherwise, no, I don't think so. I think that a watch today is really just a nice luxury object. So now the question, having said that, yes, you have technology, it's a marvel of micromechanics, of innovation, of design, etc. But it's luxury. If you remember the era of watches, sorry, I come back to history. You have the watches of the Harrison time. It was like a prowess to be able to navigate, save lives. You had watches which were tools, like pilots, car drivers to indicate the fuel or the latitude, longitude position, chronograph, tachymeter, etc. So watches have been tools. Watches have been a display of wealth. You have this beautiful, you're a gentleman with your cane and your hat, and you have your beautiful gold pocket watch to display power, precision, accuracy in your decision. Today, watches are more like a mix of what watches have been in the 70s, 80s, like display fashion, you display your taste, you display your sophistication, you display your passion. I think today watches are luxury object, like a car, like a handbag, etc. My definition of luxury is that this watch, the older it will get, the more emotional value will have this object. And probably the more value in money, the collector, limited edition, the great storytelling. So for me, I want to believe that luxury is both emotions and yes, the money, because luxury, by definition, Latin etymology of the word, it's also something which costs a lot of money, difficult to do, very rare, cost a lot, right? But there's more than that. There's this emotional value of luxury. So I believe today watches are a way to display your character, your personality, but they are in the codes of what luxury is.
And how do you think sustainability and ethics are then shaping the future of high horology as luxury objects?
I don't see so much about ethics in watches. I wish I would be more ethics in politics, to be honest. But I think the industry or the watch, the object is doesn't really carry any ethics here. Sustainability, that's interesting because it's a new trend. I mean, it's really very recent to see ourselves or younger generation being super interested in sustainability.
Mhm.
Sustainability doesn't sell. It's not because you put a green stamp on an object that people buy it. But it's a great way for a manufacturer, for a company, to make efforts in reducing pollution, reducing transportation. And we want to do that a lot at UN. If you think about it, and I speak for all the Swiss watchmaking, we are pretty sustainable by definition. I mean, if you visit our manufacturer, I hope you can do that next year. You will be in a valley. In the valley, we do almost everything in-house. But if not, the supplier will be in the village next door or behind the mountain. Or the suppliers will be just in the same town in Le Locle-Rochefort, which is like a few kilometers away. So we are very terroir, like a good wine. We are made in a very specific place. We know where we come from, and by definition, we are very sustainable. Switzerland, by definition, is making sure that production is very sustainable. So where some brands, and I think Ulysse Nardin is at the forefront, is pushing the agenda is now that you've said that, oh, we are so sustainable as a Swiss company, let's do something more. And let's try to something more. It forces you internally to review your processes, to bring even more innovation, to study circular economy, or how can you upcycle certain materials to use them as components, raw materials for your watches? How can you recycle different materials? So we have this watch, which has been an amazing success this year in 2025, called the Diver Air. The Diver Air is a watch which is, I think, over 90% either made of elements, either recycled or upcycled. So we have upcycled the steel, the high-quality steel made of medical instruments. We use fishing nets. We managed to find a way to mix fishing net with carbon fiber, itself upcycled from selling competition boats to create a new material which is super light, super resistant. And we have steel coming from the automotive industry, also upcycled. So we manage, if you want, to stretch our internal processes to respect better the laws of circular economy. It doesn't make the watch more interesting in a commercial point of view, but it's forcing Ulysse Nardin, ourselves, to look at other ways to do things. And I think that one innovation is bringing another. This is somehow sustainability at Ulysse Nardin.
And Ulysse Nardin has been in the foresight of all the sustainability movement. But I was wondering, as someone with a background in both politics and luxury, how do you connect those two worlds in your work today?
Listen, if you if you take a job like mine, I'm in charge of promoting, distributing Ulysse Nardin in North America. It's very simple, task. I'm basically the subsidiary here based in Florida is importing watches from the manufacturer. We are doing transactions. We sell our products to famous retailers across the country, and they sell them to their customers. And we do a bit of promotion, advertising. Mostly we do events, participate to a few watch fairs. So this is, in a nutshell, the job. I want to believe that for the team here, for the UN team, or for myself, it's a lot more than that. The job of distributing Ulysse Nardin is a way to learn a lot about a lot of things. We discussed how we got connected with the Naval Academy in Annapolis. The team has been there. We visited the museums. We visited the Smithsonian. We did some research. I met with some officials, CIA, FBI, Secretary of the Navy, in order to bring Ulysse Nardin to this positioning to remind people of connections with the US. I'm working with former Navy SEALs, and we help veterans with equipment and fundraising. We've been working with OSEARCH, the scientific organization for preservation and shark science. So we've been very involved with them. We are the dean of the FIU working with us on some projects. So I want to believe that this general understanding of our territory, the perimeter is United States, is a lot more than this very limited transactional function we may have. And listen, I want to nerd on this, Erdogan, because I know you will like it. Charles de Gaulle. Charles de Gaulle's a politician, but a general as well. He's also a novelist. He's been writing books and studies about leadership and the army. He has a quote. This quote used to be on the front at the entrance of the military academy where I studied in France. So Charles de Gaulle said, he was talking about leadership. And he said the best school of leadership is the general culture. In every battle, victory of Alexander the Great, you recognize Aristotle. And the idea is that if you have a strong general culture, if you're open to understand the world, all aspects, geography, history, politics, etc., this is leadership. It helps you in leadership. So I want to believe that with my passion for Ulysse Nardin, my passion for the United States, for history, diplomacy, R&D, innovation, sustainability, the sports, all this exposure I had in my life, traveling in different industries, all the curiosity my team is demonstrating, it really helps us positioning Ulysse Nardin in our market towards the collectors. They don't see the product only. They see passion. They see a super curious team who wants to learn, who wants to understand, who wants to travel. And that makes my life my job super amazing, I'm learning every day. The vehicle of learning is Ulysse Nardin. And for the rest, the conversation we had, and I enjoyed very much for the last hour, is not exactly about Ulysse Nardin watches. I'm not promoting really the brand here. We are discussing watchmaking in the world of politics. And that's fascinating. Our industry allows you to look around and learn a lot.
And looking forward, what role do you see for watches and watch brands in shaping not only horology, but cultural or even political narratives around timekeeping today?
I think that watches today, as a luxury object with a very deep heritage we've discussed, I think watches today are a marker of the time. You have trends in watchmaking, and I think that's interesting to analyze the trends in watchmaking and put them in perspective. to what's happening. I'm fascinated right now, and we are lucky because we are an independent company. I'm fascinated by the curiosity of collectors for independent watchmaking. We just signed and released a partnership with a company Uhrwerk, doing very innovative designs, and we did a watch with them, the Uhrfreak. Amazing success. So we see all this independent popping up, disappearing, but they are starting again. I think there's a lot of action, a lot of passion. I think a lot of curiosity of people. I find that very interesting of, the trends of the time. I think that people are kind of a little bit tired in everything, seeing only always the big names, the big brands, the big advertising, and information top down coming to you, asking you to consume, asking you to make a decision because you're told to make a decision. This heavy marketing and consumerism on everything. I think people are tired. And I believe it participates to the success of the small manufacturer, the workshops, companies like us, and old manufacturer. I mean, we are celebrating 180 years next year. But we keep this positioning, very limited production. We know our customers by name. And I think that the trend of the time is that collectors, they want to discover something else. They want the individualistic decision making. Today, between the online, the CPO business, which is huge in the US, the flagships of the brands, the standalone boutiques, but the multi-brand as well, the internet, AI tomorrow, etc. There's a gigantic choice for watches. Gigantic. And you see how people moved from the attitude of buying. Before, they were like for cars. You have the idea that there are 5 brands and you buy one of them. And today, the mindset shifted to collecting. You research. Some people, they want to meet with a watchmaker or they want to meet with us before they make a decision on buying a watch. This process of I want to make my own choice. I want less influence from above to understand watches. I think it participates to our industry, and it probably exists as well in fashion and in other industries, I believe. So my answer is watches are and will be even more a marker of the time and people's feelings.
And this has been amazing, FX. This conversation, such a candid conversation. But for last, I wanted to finish the podcast as I usually finish others. And we talked about what is luxury. We talked about that transition from buyers to collectors or from consumers to collectors. I wanted to ask you, what is a collector for you?
Oh, it's a good question. Let's make things simple. You have the buyers and the collectors. Both are great. I mean, both people are great. I'm not like a snob here. But let's go together to watch event. And you will have gals and guys saying like, oh, I have this brand, this brand, this brand. So you want to dig why they have it. And I would consider that a buyer is somebody who's been heavily influenced to buy a certain watch. Heavy marketing. Brands have like millions of dollars in marketing in the US. Literally, we have zero advertising money to explain. Some brands have millions. So you open a magazine. Oh, there's a watch. You open a TV. There's a watch. There's a product placement with a famous actor. This is heavy investment to convince you to buy a specific brand because this is quality, this is recognition, this help you build your status. You can't go wrong. For me, that's the buyers, and they buy the big names that everybody knows. The collectors are people who are doing a lot of research. They want to know a lot about the brand, not only the usual, oh, it's big in advertising and Brad Pitt or I don't know, DiCaprio or whoever wears the watch on the campaign. No. They want to learn about the brands. They want to learn about the people behind the brands. And they want to interact with media. They listen to Watches and Politics podcast. They will read Hodinkey, Revolution, Watch Time, etc. They will go to Watch Fair. They will go to the Miami Watch Club, or the Atlanta Watch Society, the Horological Society in New York for a conference. And they are many collectors are very community driven. They want to meet people with the same passion. And these people are, for me, driving the energy of the industry. The buyers, they give money to the industry. The collectors, they create the hype. They have the passion. They promote the industry. They want to talk with others. They recruit new people to this kind of crazy cult of collecting watches. Ulysse Nardin is not for buyers. Ulysse Nardin is for collectors. People buying, collectors buying a freak, they already have many watches. In the journey of buying watches, they shifted from I've been buying the top 4-5 names and I enter into collection. It's not a matter of money. I mean, of course, this watch is $76,000, so yes, it has a cost. But you can be a collector. I'm buying, in my collection, I have a Seiko, I have a Doxa, I have watches below between $1,000 $5,000. I just bought a GR Perregaux on eBay for $500, which I love. I did a little bit of polishing, a little bit of maintenance. The watch is stunning. It's 1971 GP, GR Perregaux. But it's just the attitude, of I want to show it, I want to bring it, I want to talk about it, I want to ask to other collectors, GP, UN, what do they have? I think that's collecting.
So, FX, this has been an amazing, amazing conversation. Thank you very much for this candid conversation. A lot of brand presidents are shy from going into podcasts like mine, where we are very candid to speak about everything from the brands you guys represent to your opinions. And usually, when people hear about politics, that is a kind of red flag. But since the beginning that I met you, you were so open to such an idea, and you always were very supportive, for which I thank you very much. Here at Watches and Politics, we want to educate the collectors. We want to give knowledge to people who are curious about watches and, yes, about politics. I really appreciate for your time and sharing your knowledge and wisdom that you have gathered from so much background into the luxury market, and now with an incredible brand that is Ulysse Nardin. I'm looking forward to further conversations.
Thank you, Erdogan, for the invitation. I hope your people had a good time. We'll have a good time listening to this podcast. And history, next year we celebrate 25 years of the Freak. We celebrate 180 years of the manufacturer. So there's a lot of storytelling to come. There's a lot of events to come. There will be amazing collections coming very soon. So I hope your community will stay tuned to us. And I hope I will meet with them very soon.
Amazing. Yes. Whoever listening this in the US should reach out to FX. Thank you very much again, and talk to you soon.
Thank you, Erdogan. Bye-bye.